The lecture hall smelled like recycled air and nervous students. Professor Rilvan adjusted his 3 eyes to focus on the holographic display floating above his desk. Today's topic was dangerous compounds found throughout the galaxy, and he took pride in teaching young beings how to avoid poisoning themselves on foreign worlds. 40 students from 12 different species sat in curved rows, their various appendages busy taking notes on data pads. Rilvan clicked his mandibles together, a sign he was about to say something important. This next substance has caused more accidental deaths than any other natural compound in the explored sectors, he announced. The hologram shifted to show a molecular structure that glowed red, capsaicin, found primarily on the death world Earth. Even trace amounts can cause severe pain, respiratory failure, and death in most galactic species. Several students gasped. A Valkyrin in the front row turned pale blue, which meant she was scared. Rilvan continued his lecture, explaining how the molecule worked by triggering pain receptors meant to detect actual tissue damage. The affected creature experiences burning sensations, so intense that their brain believes they are being destroyed from the inside. Death can follow from shock alone, even if the physical damage is minimal, Rilvan said gravely. That was when he heard it. A quiet chuckle from the back of the room. Rilvan's middle eye swiveled to locate the source. There sat David Cole, the human exchange student who had joined their program last semester. The young man had brown hair and was covering his mouth, trying to suppress his laughter. Mr. Cole, do you find interstellar toxicology amusing? Rilvan asked. David's face turned slightly pink. Sorry, Professor. It's just that, well, we eat that stuff. The classroom went silent. Every student turned to stare at David. A Drellian student's breathing tubes fluttered with confusion. I beg your pardon? Rilvan said slowly. David stood up, realizing he had everyone's attention now. Capsaicin. We put it in our food. On purpose. Some people eat it every day. Rilvan felt his teaching credential flashing before his eyes. Either this human was dangerously misinformed or something very strange was happening. That is impossible, Rilvan stated. My research clearly shows that capsaicin exposure causes— Oh, it definitely hurts, David interrupted, then quickly added, Sorry for interrupting, Professor. But yeah, it makes your mouth feel like it's on fire. That's kind of the point. A Centauri student raised 4 of her limbs in distress. Why would anyone do that intentionally? David shrugged. It tastes good? Plus, after a while, you build up a tolerance. My dad can eat peppers that would make me cry, and I can handle stuff that used to seem impossible when I was younger. Rilvan accessed his datapad quickly, searching through human dietary records. He had studied many species before, but humans had only recently joined the galactic community. His research had been limited. What he found made his antenna droop. This cannot be accurate, he muttered, reading through the files. These records show humans consuming capsaicin in concentrations that should require hospitalization. Do you have any with you? Asked a brave Tullian student named Prill. David reached into his backpack. Actually, yeah. I brought some hot sauce from home because the cafeteria food is pretty bland. Rilvan nearly triggered the emergency biohazard alarm right there. Stop, do not remove that container. But David had already pulled out a small glass bottle filled with red liquid. He held it up casually, the way someone might hold a bottle of water. It's just Frank's Red Hot, David said. This is pretty mild, honestly. The students nearest to David scrambled backward, knocking over chairs. The Drellian student made a sound like air escaping from a balloon and fainted. Medical emergency, Rilvan shouted, pressing the alert button. 2 medical staff arrived within minutes. They revived the Drellian student, who recovered quickly once they realized she had only fainted from fear. Not actual exposure to the toxin. The head medic, a Valkyrin named Dr. Shireen, scanned the bottle in David's hand with her medical tricorder. Her face went through several color changes as she read the results. This concentration would kill me in seconds, she said quietly. How are you holding this without gloves? It's food, David said again, becoming concerned that he had caused a major incident. Look, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare anyone. Should I put this away? Not yet, Professor Rilvan said, his scientific curiosity overcoming his shock. Dr. Shireen, would it be possible to observe Mr. Cole consuming this substance under controlled conditions? Absolutely not, the doctor said immediately. Then she paused. Well, I suppose if we had full monitoring equipment and an emergency response team ready. David looked between them. You want to watch me eat hot sauce? If you are willing, Rilvan said. I must see this with my own eyes, or I will never believe it. 20 minutes later, David sat in the university's biolab surrounded by medical equipment. Half the class had followed, maintaining a safe distance behind a transparent barrier. Professor Rilvan stood next to Dr. Shireen, both watching their monitoring screens with intense focus. David opened the bottle. Several students whimpered. He tipped the bottle over a small piece of bread and let 3 drops fall onto it. Then he picked up the bread and took a bite. The monitors went crazy. David's heart rate increased. His skin temperature rose. His pain receptors lit up like a star-going supernova. Every biological indicator suggested he was being attacked by a lethal substance, but David just chewed and swallowed. His face got a bit red. A single drop of sweat rolled down his forehead. He smiled. See? Not so bad. This is like level 2 out of 10 for spicy food. Professor Rilvan stared at the monitors, then at David, then back at the monitors. In his 40 years of teaching xenobiology, he had never seen anything like this. Mr. Cole, he said slowly, I think you and I need to have a very long conversation about human dietary habits. David grinned and took another bite of his bread. Sure, Professor. Want to join me for lunch tomorrow? I know a place that makes pretty good curry. Rilvan wasn't sure what curry was, but he had a feeling he was about to learn far more about humans than any textbook could teach. David's dorm room had become an impromptu laboratory. Professor Rilvan sat uncomfortably on a chair designed for human proportions. His datapad balanced on one knee while David rummaged through packages sent from Earth. My mom shipped this stuff last month, David explained, pulling out jars and bottles. She was worried I wasn't eating well. Rilvan examined each container as David set them on the desk. Red powders, brown sauces, dried pods that looked like shriveled fingers. Each label promised varying degrees of heat, measured in something called Scoville units. Your parental unit sent you weapons-grade chemicals because she was concerned about your nutrition? Rilvan asked. David laughed. These aren't weapons, Professor. Well, I guess pepper spray is technically a weapon. But that's different. These are just normal cooking ingredients. Normal. The word echoed in Rilvan's mind. He picked up a package labeled ghost pepper and scanned it with his portable analyzer. The readings made his antenna twitch. This single pod contains enough capsaicin to incapacitate everyone in my department, Rilvan said. Yeah, ghost peppers are pretty serious, David agreed. I usually only use tiny amounts. There are around 1 million Scoville units. Rilvan accessed his datapad and pulled up human dietary records again. He had spent the last 3 days reading everything he could find about Earth food culture. What he discovered had kept him awake during his rest cycles. David, I need to understand something. According to these records, capsaicin is not the only dangerous substance humans consume regularly. What do you mean? Rilvan displayed a list on his datapad. Caffeine. Your species drinks it daily in beverages. My species uses it as a pesticide. It causes our hearts to stop, David nodded. Coffee and tea, sure. Can't start my day without coffee? Ethanol. You consume it recreationally, despite it being a solvent that damages organic tissue. Beer, wine, spirits, David confirmed. Yeah, alcohol is pretty popular. Theobromine. Found in cacao beans. Lethal to 47 known species. Chocolate is amazing, though, David said with a smile. Rilvan continued down his list. Allyl isothiocyanate found in your mustard and wasabi. Hydrogen cyanide compounds in your apple seeds and almonds. Solanine in potatoes. Oxalic acid in spinach. The list continues for 300 more entries. David scratched his head. I mean, when you put it that way, it sounds bad. But you have to eat a lot of apple seeds to get sick. And we cook potatoes, which reduces the solanine. You are missing my point, Rilvan said, his voice rising. Your species has surrounded itself with deadly substances and incorporated them into daily life. This is not normal survival behavior. Maybe not for other species, David said carefully, but Earth is kind of rough. Everything there either wants to eat you, poison you, or both. Humans had to learn what we could safely eat, and we got pretty good at it. Rilvan stood up and paced the small room. His scientific mind was racing. I need to publish this. The galactic community needs to understand what kind of world produced humanity. Is that going to make people scared of us? David asked quietly. The professor stopped pacing. He looked at David, really looked at him. The young human seemed worried, not threatening. His concern was genuine. Possibly, Rilvan admitted, but knowledge is important. Understanding your species better will help us work together. David considered this, then brightened. What if we did a demonstration? Like in the lab yesterday, but more detailed. Show people that humans aren't dangerous, we just have different tolerances. A demonstration of what exactly? Let me cook some human food. Real food, not just hot sauce on bread. I can show the progression from mild to spicy, explain the culture behind it, make it educational. Rilvan's scientific curiosity won over his caution. I will need to arrange proper safety protocols. Obviously, David agreed. But I think if people see me actually enjoying this stuff, making a meal out of it, they'll understand better. 3 days later, David stood in the university's containment lab wearing normal clothes while everyone else wore full protective gear. A camera drone recorded everything for academic purposes. 50 students and faculty watched from behind reinforced glass. David had brought ingredients for tacos. Ground meat seasoned with mild chili powder, tomatoes, cheese, lettuce, and various toppings arranged in bowls. He also had small containers of different peppers, each labeled with their Scoville rating. We'll start simple, David explained to his audience. His voice transmitted through speakers in the observation area. This is a basic taco with just a little bit of spice, maybe 500 Scoville units. He assembled the taco and took a bite. The monitoring equipment showed minimal stress responses. David chewed happily. Tastes like home, he said. He made a second taco, adding sliced jalapenos. This jumps us up to about 5,000 Scoville units. This is what most humans would consider normal spicy food. Another bite. His face remained calm, though the monitors showed increased blood flow and elevated skin temperature in his mouth. He was clearly feeling something, but not suffering. A Velcurrent student raised a tentacle. Why do you continue if it causes pain? David swallowed and thought about his answer. It's not exactly pain, or maybe it is, but there's something else too. The burn releases endorphins, makes you feel good afterward. Plus, the flavor is incredible. Peppers don't just add heat, they add complexity. He continued through his demonstration. Habanero peppers at 300,000 Scoville units. His face turned red and sweat appeared on his forehead, but he smiled throughout. Thai chilies at 100,000 mixed into the meat. He drank water between bites, explaining that dairy products worked better, but he wanted to show what the peppers actually did. The final taco contained a small amount of Carolina Reaper, one of Earth's hottest peppers at over 2 million Scoville units. David took a smaller bite this time. The monitors went wild. His pain receptors fired constantly. His eyes watered. His breathing quickened. Every biological sign said he was in distress, but he was laughing. Okay, that's intense, he managed to say between gasps. Definitely feel that one. But man, the flavor underneath the heat is fantastic. Dr. Shireen studied her medical display with fascination. His body is releasing massive amounts of endorphins. He is essentially getting high from the pain. Rilvan recorded every detail. This was revolutionary. Humans had not just adapted to survive toxic compounds. They had learned to enjoy them, to seek them out, to create entire cultures around them. When David finally finished, his face was bright red and covered in sweat, but he was grinning. Any questions? He asked his audience. Every hand, tentacle, and appendage in the room went up. Professor Rilvan smiled, something his species rarely did. This was going to be the most important research of his career. The research paper spread through the galactic academic network like fire through dry grass. Professor Rilvan's preliminary findings on human dietary practices shocked xenobiologists across 36 star systems. Within a week, Rilvan's office overflowed with messages. Scientists wanted data. Universities requested interviews. News organizations begged for comments. His simple documentation of David eating progressively spicier food had become the most downloaded academic video in the network's history. Rilvan sat at his desk, trying to answer the flood of inquiries when David knocked on his open door. Professor, you wanted to see me? Yes, come in, Rilvan gestured with 2 of his limbs. We need to discuss something important. David entered and sat down. He looked nervous. Am I in trouble? Some students have been avoiding me in the hallways. Not trouble exactly, Rilvan said. He turned his datapad around so David could see the screen. My paper has generated significant attention. However, several colleagues have raised concerns. David leaned forward to read. His face fell as he scrolled through the comments. They think humans are dangerous, he said quietly. Some do, Rilvan admitted. They see your ability to consume toxins as evidence of aggressive biology. They worry about what else humans might be capable of. But we're not aggressive, David protested. We eat spicy food because we like it, not because we're trying to prove anything. Rilvan clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. I understand that. But consider how it appears to species who can be killed by substances you consider food flavoring. It creates fear. David slumped in his chair. So what do? We continue the research, Rilvan said firmly. But we expand it. I want to document not just what humans eat, but why. The cultural context, the history, show that human dietary practices reflect adaptation and creativity, not aggression. Like a cultural study instead of just a biological one? Precisely, David sat up straighter. I can help with that. There are 4 other human students on campus. We could all contribute, show different food cultures from Earth. Rilvan's antenna perked up. That would be invaluable. Each human culture developed different relationships with dangerous substances. Completely different, David confirmed. Like Korean food uses a lot of fermented ingredients and gochugaru pepper flakes. Indian cuisine has dozens of spice blends. Mexican food has hundreds of varieties of chilies. Thai food balances hot, sweet, sour, and salty. They're all unique. Fermented ingredients, Rilvan noted, typing rapidly. Those would contain bacteria. Well, yeah. Kimchi, yogurt, cheese, beer, sourdough bread. Fermentation is a preservation method that also adds flavor. Rilvan checked his database. The bacteria in these foods would cause severe illness in most galactic species. But they're good bacteria for humans. Probiotics and stuff. The professor leaned back in his chair. Do you see the pattern, David? Humans have turned multiple categories of dangerous substances into staple foods. Toxins, bacteria, alcohol, compounds that literally trigger pain receptors. Your species has weaponized your own digestive system. I never thought about it that way, David said slowly. We just call it eating. Over the next 2 weeks, David gathered the other human students. There was Lisa from Korea, Raj from India, Carmen from Mexico, and Yuki from Japan. Each brought ingredients from home and shared their food traditions. Rilvan documented everything. He learned about kimchi fermentation processes that took months. He discovered that Indian curry wasn't one spice but a complex blend of dozens, each serving a purpose beyond flavor. Carmen explained how different regions of Mexico specialized in different chilies, each with unique characteristics. Yuki introduced him to wasabi, which contained allyl isothiocyanate, the same compound used in riot control agents on some planets. She ate it with raw fish, another practice that horrified most galactic citizens. The fish is incredibly fresh, Yuki explained. Humans learned that truly fresh fish is safe to eat raw. It's about understanding freshness and proper handling. You developed an entire cuisine around eating uncooked animal flesh, Rilvan said, making notes. When you say it like that, it sounds scary, Yuki admitted. But sushi is an art form. It's about respecting the ingredient and preparing it correctly. Respect. That word appeared frequently in human discussions of food. Rilvan noted it every time. Lisa talked about Korean drinking culture while preparing several types of kimchi. We ferment vegetables to preserve them through winter. Each family has their own recipe, passed down through generations. So this is not just nutrition, Rilvan observed. This is cultural heritage. Exactly, Lisa said. Food connects us to our ancestors, our homeland, our identity. Raj prepared a mild curry for some brave alien students who wanted to try human food. He carefully selected spices with lower toxicity and explained each one's role. Turmeric for color and health benefits, cumin for earthiness, coriander for brightness, a tiny bit of chili for warmth. Each spice has a purpose in the blend. 3 Centauri students tried the curry under medical supervision. They found it overwhelming but not painful. One even asked for a second taste. It is strange, the student said, but interesting. I can understand why you would want to eat this. Rilvan compiled months of research into a comprehensive paper. This time he focused on the cultural sophistication behind human dietary practices. He explained how humans had turned the challenges of Earth into opportunities for creativity. The paper's conclusion read, Human consumption of dangerous substances does not indicate aggression or recklessness. Rather, it demonstrates remarkable adaptability and cultural depth. Humans have transformed survival necessities into art forms, created social bonds through shared meals, and developed sophisticated knowledge systems around food preparation and safety. Furthermore, the paper continued, Humans show considerable restraint. Despite having evolved resistance to numerous toxins, they do not use these substances as weapons against other species. Instead, they eagerly share their culinary traditions, always with appropriate warnings and accommodations for alien biology. When Rilvan published his expanded research, the response changed. Scientists began to see human food culture as a window into human psychology. Yes, humans came from a dangerous world. Yes, they consumed things that would kill most galactic citizens. But they did so with knowledge, care, and joy. David read the paper in Rilvan's office, nodding as he scrolled through the pages. "This is good, Professor." "Really good. You made it about culture, not just biology." "Because that is what it is," Rilvan said. "Your species fascinates me, David. You take deadly things and make them delicious. You turn poison into pleasure. That is not frightening." "That is extraordinary," David smiled. "Want to try some mild curry?" Raj made extra. Rilvan looked at the container David offered. 6 months ago, he would have refused immediately. Now, with full medical monitoring available and a better understanding of human food culture, he felt curious rather than afraid. "Perhaps a very small taste," he said. Progress, he thought, came in small bites. The university cafeteria had never seen such a crowd. Students packed the space, sitting on floors and standing along walls. Word had spread that something unprecedented was about to happen. David and the other human students had proposed an idea that initially seemed insane. They wanted to open a small restaurant on campus where aliens could experience human food safely. The administration debated for weeks before finally agreeing, with extensive safety requirements. They called it the Death World Kitchen, a name that made David cringe but the alien students loved. It occupied a small corner of the cafeteria with its own preparation area. Clear barriers separated it from the main dining space. Medical staff stood by during all operating hours. Today was opening day. Carmen stood at the grill, wearing a red apron that read, "I survived Earth's cuisine," she had volunteered, to handle the first customers because her smile put nervous aliens at ease. "Welcome to Death World Kitchen," she announced. "We have 3 tiers of spice for alien customers. Level 0 has no capsaicin at all, just other Earth seasonings. Level 1 has trace amounts barely detectable to humans. Level 2 is slightly stronger but still completely safe for most species." A brave Drellian student named Pill approached the counter. His breathing tubes fluttered nervously. "I would like to try Level 0, Pill said. "Something simple. How about quesadillas?" Carmen suggested. "Melted cheese between tortillas with tomatoes and cilantro. No heat at all, just flavor," Pill agreed. Carmen prepared the food while Dr. Shireen stood nearby with monitoring equipment. When the quesadilla was ready, Pill took it to a table. 20 students watched as he took his first bite of human food. His eyes widened. He chewed slowly, then took another bite. "This is acceptable," Pill announced. "Actually, this is good. The combination of flavors is pleasant." The crowd erupted in excited chatter. If Pill could eat human food safely, maybe they could too. By the end of the first hour, 12 alien students had tried Level 0 dishes. Most enjoyed them. A few found the flavors too strong, but none experienced any medical issues. Then a Centauri student named Dira requested Level 1 spice. "Are you certain?" Dr. Shireen asked. "This contains actual capsaicin." "I am curious," Dira said. "I want to understand what humans experience, even if only a fraction." David prepared chicken tacos with the mildest peppers he could find, diluted to nearly undetectable levels for a human. For Dira, it would be a significant experience. Dira took a bite. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then her face changed colors, cycling through her species' emotional spectrum. Blue for surprise, green for confusion, yellow for interest. "It is warm," she said. "Not painful, but definitely warm. And underneath, there are other flavors?" "This is complex." She finished the entire taco, slowly savoring each bite. When she was done, she looked at David with newfound respect. "You eat food much stronger than this?" "This is like 1% of what I normally eat," David admitted. "Then humans are either very brave or very foolish," Dira said, but she smiled. "Possibly both. May I have another?" The Death World Kitchen became the most popular spot on campus within a week. Students lined up to try safe versions of human food. They discovered that Earth cuisine offered incredible variety, even without the dangerous elements. Raj introduced them to Mango Lassi, a sweet yogurt drink that aliens found delicious and completely harmless. Yuki made vegetable sushi rolls that showcased fresh ingredients without any wasabi. Lisa prepared bibimbap with mild seasonings that highlighted vegetables and rice. Professor Rilvan visited the kitchen regularly, documenting everything. He noticed something interesting in his observations. Alien students were not just trying the food, they were bonding with the human students over it. A Velkaran student named Sora had been terrified of humans after Rilvan's first paper. She had avoided David in hallways and switched seats to stay away from any human students. But she loved trying new things, and the Level 0 menu tempted her. David noticed her hesitating near the counter one day. "Want to try something?" he asked gently. "I promise it's completely safe. No spice at all. What would you recommend?" Sora asked quietly. "How about flour tortillas with butter and cinnamon sugar? It's basically like a sweetbread." "We call them cinnamon sugar tortillas," Sora agreed. David prepared them fresh, the smell of cinnamon filling the air. When she tasted one, her face brightened to a happy yellow color. "This is wonderful," she said. "So simple but so good." They talked while she ate. David explained how his grandmother used to make these as a quick snack. Sora shared stories about her world's food traditions. By the end of their conversation, she was laughing at David's jokes. "I was afraid of you," Sora admitted. "I thought humans were dangerous because you eat dangerous things." "I get it," David said. "But eating spicy food doesn't make me dangerous. It just means I like spicy food." "I understand that now," Sora said. "You are kind. You took time to make something safe for me." Professor Rilvan watched this interaction and many others like it. He realized something important. The Death World kitchen was not just serving food. It was building bridges between species. He approached David after closing one evening. "This has exceeded my expectations," Rilvan said. "Students are learning that differences in biology do not require fear. They can be opportunities for understanding." "That was the goal," David said, cleaning the grill. "Food brings people together, even when those people are from different planets." "I have a proposal," Rilvan said. "I want to expand my research into a full-course curriculum. Extreme environment adaptations and cultural evolution. I want you and the other humans to be guest lecturers." David stopped cleaning. "Really, that's a huge honor, Professor. You have earned it. You have shown this campus that humans are not threats. You are teachers, friends, and fellow students. You just happen to have very interesting dietary requirements." The course was approved within a month. It became one of the most popular electives in university history. Students learned about extremophile species from various worlds, but the human section always drew the biggest crowds. David taught a session on the history of spice trade on Earth, explaining how black pepper was once worth its weight in gold. Carmen discussed the cultural significance of Day of the Dead bread. Raj explained the Ayurvedic principles behind Indian spice combinations. Lisa talked about kimchi's role in Korean survival through harsh winters. Yuki demonstrated proper sushi preparation techniques. Each lecture showed that human relationships with food went far beyond just consuming calories. Food was history, culture, art, science, and love all combined. By the end of the semester, 300 students had taken the course. Exit surveys showed that 97% of alien students had a more positive view of humans after learning about their food culture. The Death World kitchen expanded to a larger space to handle demand. Medical staff were no longer needed on standby, because everyone understood the safety protocols. Several alien students even worked up to trying level 2 spice, though they usually needed lots of water afterward. One evening, as David closed up the kitchen, Pill approached him with a group of friends. "David, we wanted to thank you," Pill said. "Before this, many of us only knew about humans from news reports and scary stories. Now we know you as friends. That means a lot," David said sincerely. "Also," Pill continued, "we were wondering if you might teach us how to make that quesadilla dish. We want to prepare it for our families during the next holiday." David grinned. "I would love to." Professor Rilvan observed from a distance, making notes for his next paper. The title was already clear in his mind. Shared Meals, Shared Understanding. How Human Cuisine Became a Tool for Diplomatic Connection. Sometimes, he thought, the best way to bring species together was not through formal treaties or academic papers. Sometimes, all you needed was good food and an open mind. The message arrived on Professor Rilvan's private channel at dawn. It carried the seal of the Galactic Council, which meant this was serious. He read it 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. The council wanted him to present his research on human dietary practices at their next session. More importantly, they wanted David and the other human students to attend as well. Rilvan immediately called David, who answered, sounding half asleep. "Professor? What time is it?" "Early apologies, but this is important. The Galactic Council wants to discuss humans and food." That woke David up. "Wait, the actual Galactic Council? The one that makes decisions for hundreds of planets?" "The very same. They have questions about human integration into galactic society. Your dietary practices have raised concerns among some member species." "Concerns?" David repeated. "That's not good. Not necessarily bad either," Rilvan said. "They want to understand, not judge. At least not yet." 3 weeks later, David stood in a transport ship with Professor Rilvan, the other human students, and a container of carefully selected food samples. They were heading to Council Station, a massive structure that orbited a neutral star system. "I am terrified," Raj admitted. "What if we mess this up?" "We will not mess this up," Carmen said firmly. "We are just going to be ourselves and explain our culture. That is all we can do." The council chamber was enormous. Representatives from 74 species sat in a circular arrangement. At the center was a presentation platform where Rilvan and the humans would speak. Counselor Vren, a towering being from the Arcturus system, called the session to order. "Have invited Professor Rilvan and his human subjects to address concerns about human biology and its implications for galactic security." David winced at being called a subject, but Rilvan had warned him that council language was formal and sometimes impersonal. Rilvan began his presentation, showing data and research findings. He explained human evolutionary history, Earth's hostile environment, and how humans had adapted to consume substances that were toxic to most other species. Then Counselor Hesh, a small being with crystalline features, interrupted. "This research confirms our fears," Hesh said. "Humans are biologically designed to consume weapons-grade chemicals. How can we trust that they will not use this ability against other species?" A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. David felt his heart sink. This was going badly. But then Counselor Mira, an elegant being from the Sirius colonies, spoke up. "With respect, Counselor Hesh, that logic is flawed. Humans can consume these substances, yes. But what have they done with this ability?" "We do not know," Hesh replied. "They are new to the galactic community." "Then let us ask them," Mira said. She looked directly at David. "Human student, you were the first to demonstrate capsaicin consumption. Tell us honestly, have you or any human ever used these substances as weapons against other species?" David stepped forward, his voice shaking slightly. "No, Counselor, never. And I can explain why we would not." "Please do." David took a deep breath. When humans learned to eat spicy food, it was not about becoming weapons. It was about survival and later about joy. My ancestors in Mexico learned that certain peppers grew well in their climate. They experimented and found that these peppers could preserve meat, add nutrition, and make food taste better. He continued, gaining confidence. They did not weaponize the peppers. They celebrated them. They created festivals around chili harvests. They passed down recipes through families. They turned something that could hurt into something that brought people together. Carmen stepped forward. "My grandmother always said that food is love made visible. When we share our spicy food, we are not showing off how tough we are. We are inviting people into our culture, our history, our homes." Lisa added, "In Korea, when we make kimchi, whole families work together. It is called kimjang. Everyone has a role. We make enough to share with neighbors and friends. That is what food means to us, community." Raj spoke next. "Indian cuisine developed over thousands of years. We learned which spices aided digestion, which ones fought infections, which combinations created balance in the body. This knowledge was medical science before we had modern medicine. We were not making weapons. We were making healing." Yuki finished their explanation. "Japanese cuisine emphasizes respect for ingredients. We show gratitude for the life that feeds us. Even when we eat something raw or fermented, it is done with care and tradition. There is honor in our food practices." The council chamber fell silent. Counselor Vren leaned forward. "You are saying that human food culture is fundamentally about connection and care, not aggression?" "Yes," David said firmly. "Exactly that." Professor Rilvan stepped forward with additional data. "I have documented extensive evidence supporting this claim. In every human culture I studied, food serves as a social bonding mechanism. Humans invite strangers to eat with them as a sign of peace. They celebrate important life events with shared meals. They comfort grieving individuals with home-cooked dishes. He displayed images from the Death World kitchen. Furthermore, when humans encountered species who could not safely consume their food, they immediately adapted. They created special menus, warned of dangers, and took precautions to ensure alien safety. This is not the behavior of a species looking to weaponize their biology. Counselor Mira nodded slowly. I visited your university last month, Professor. I tried something called a quesadilla from your human students' restaurant. It was delicious and perfectly safe. They were kind and careful with me. Other counselors began sharing similar stories. One had a human neighbor who always brought extra food when cooking. Another had worked with human diplomats who made sure all meeting refreshments were safe for every species present. Counselor Hesh remained skeptical. But the potential for harm still exists. It exists in every species, Counselor Vren said. The Drellians can breathe in environments that would suffocate most of us. The Centauri can see light spectrums that would blind others. Every species has unique adaptations that could theoretically be weaponized. The question is not capability, but intention. Mira added, what I see in these humans is not danger, but generosity. They have adapted to one of the most hostile planets in known space, and their response was not to become hostile themselves. They learned to find joy in their environment and now eagerly share that joy with others. The council debated for hours. David and the others sat nervously, answering questions when asked. They demonstrated food preparation, explained cultural contexts, and shared personal stories about what food meant to them. Finally, as the station's artificial sun set, Counselor Vren called for a decision. All in favor of recognizing human dietary practices as cultural heritage rather than security threat? 68 of 74 counselors voted in favor. David felt tears in his eyes. They had done it. They had made the council understand. Counselor Vren addressed them directly. Humans, you have taught the council something valuable today. You showed us that strength does not require aggression, and adaptation does not mean weaponization. You have turned your planet's challenges into culture, art, and connection. He paused, then added something unexpected. The council would be honored if you would prepare a meal for us. A real human meal, with appropriate safety precautions, of course. We wish to experience your culture as you intended it to be shared. David looked at his friends, seeing the same shocked joy on their faces. We would be honored, he said. That evening, the 5 human students prepared a feast for the Galactic Council. They made level 0 dishes for those who needed them, and carefully graded options for the more adventurous. They explained each dish, shared stories, and watched as representatives from dozens of worlds experienced Earth cuisine for the first time. By the end of the night, several counselors asked for recipes. Counselor Mira requested regular shipments of cinnamon. Counselor Vren wanted to know if humans would consider teaching cooking classes on Council Station. As they cleaned up, Professor Rilvan approached David. You did well today. You showed them who humans truly are. David smiled, tired but happy. We just shared our food, Professor. That is what humans do. Precisely, Rilvan said, and perhaps that is your greatest strength. 2 years had passed since David first pulled out that bottle of hot sauce in Professor Rilvan's class. The university campus looked different now. Where once there had been empty courtyard space, colorful food stalls stood in neat rows. Banners hung between buildings announcing the first annual Galactic Food Festival. David walked through the festival grounds with a sense of pride and wonder. The idea had started small, just a suggestion during a planning meeting. Now it had become something massive. Representatives from 40 different worlds had sent food vendors. Each stall offered dishes that were safe for multiple species to try. The Death World kitchen had expanded into a full restaurant off campus. It was successful enough that David and his friends now employed students from multiple species. They had become a model for cross-cultural business cooperation. Professor Rilvan found David near the main stage, where cooking demonstrations would take place throughout the day. Nervous? The professor asked. Very, David admitted. I am about to cook with Carolina Reapers in front of thousands of people. You have done this before. Not as the opening act for a galactic festival, David said, and not with so many children watching. The festival organizers had specifically requested that David perform a demonstration similar to his original one in the lab. but this time as entertainment and education combined. They wanted to show young beings from all species that differences could be celebrated rather than feared. The crowd gathered. Thousands of beings from dozens of species filled the courtyard. Children sat on parents' shoulders or hovered in anti-gravity fields. News drones circled overhead, broadcasting across the galaxy. David stepped onto the stage. A simple table held his ingredients, progression of peppers from mild to extreme, and a glass of milk for afterward. "Hello, everyone," he began, his voice amplified across the festival. "My name is David Cole. I am a human from Earth. 2 years ago, I accidentally terrified my entire biology class by eating food that most species consider deadly. Today, I want to show you why humans eat this food and what it means to our culture." He held up a bell pepper, large and green. "This is where we start. This pepper has no heat at all. Humans eat these like fruit. They are sweet and crunchy." Children in the audience whispered excitedly. A bell pepper looked harmless enough. "But peppers come in many forms," David continued. He displayed each one, explaining their origins and significance. Jalapenos from Mexico, Thai chilies from Southeast Asia, Scotch bonnets from the Caribbean, ghost peppers from India. Then he held up the Carolina Reaper, the final pepper in his lineup. "This is one of the hottest peppers humans have cultivated. It measures over 2 million Scoville units. For context, pepper spray used for defense is about 2 million Scoville units. This pepper is basically edible defense spray." The crowd gasped. A young Drellian child asked loudly, "Why would anyone eat that?" David smiled. "That is exactly the right question. Let me show you." He began preparing his food, starting with the mild peppers and working his way up. He explained what he felt at each level. The gentle warmth of jalapenos, the building heat of serranos, the intense burn of habaneros. Medical monitors displayed his vital signs on large screens. The audience watched, fascinated as his body responded to each progressive level of spice. "Notice my pain receptors are firing," David explained between bites. "My body is telling me something is wrong, but my brain knows better. This is controlled exposure to something that feels dangerous but is actually safe." He paused before the final pepper. "This last one is going to be intense. I want you to understand that I choose to do this. Not because I have to, not to prove I am tough, but because underneath all this heat there is an incredible flavor. And because this pepper represents thousands of years of human agriculture, patience, and passion." He took a small bite of the Carolina Reaper. The monitors went crazy. His face turned red almost instantly. Sweat appeared on his forehead. His breathing quickened, but he kept talking, his voice strained but steady. "This hurts," he said honestly. "But I also taste smoke, fruit, a kind of sweetness underneath the fire. My body is releasing endorphins now. In a few minutes I will actually feel amazing." He finished the bite and reached for his milk. "Dairy helps," he gasped. "Breaks down the capsaicin oils." The crowd erupted in applause. Children cheered. Adults clicked, whistled, and made approval sounds in their various languages. When David recovered enough to speak normally, he addressed the audience again. "Humans eat spicy food for many reasons. Because it reminds us of home. Because it connects us to our ancestors who discovered these flavors centuries ago. Because sharing a spicy meal with friends creates a kind of bond. We all suffer together and laugh about it after." He gestured to the festival around them. "But the most important reason we eat this food is because it teaches us something valuable. It teaches us that something can seem dangerous, even feel dangerous, but still be safe if you approach it with knowledge and respect." The applause grew louder. David bowed and left the stage, his mouth still burning but his heart full. Throughout the day, the festival showcased foods from across the galaxy. The Centauri displayed their crystallized nutrient formations. The Velcarin showed off their photosynthesis-enhanced vegetable gardens. The Drellians demonstrated their gas-based flavor infusions, but the Death World Kitchen's booth remained the most crowded. Aliens lined up to try carefully calibrated human dishes. Some attempted level 1 spice for the first time. A few brave souls even tried level 2. Professor Rilvan had his own booth displaying his research in interactive formats. Young students could learn about extreme adaptations across many species, not just humans. His work had evolved beyond just studying human diet, to examining how all species adapted to their challenging homeworlds. As evening approached, the festival organizers called David back to the stage for closing remarks. "When I first came to this university, I was just a kid from Earth trying to get an education. David said. I never imagined that my lunch would become a diplomatic incident. The crowd laughed. But I learned something important here. Fear comes from not understanding. Once people understood why humans eat spicy food, they stopped being afraid. Some even became curious. A few became fans. He looked out at the diverse crowd. Every species here has something unique about them, something that might seem strange or scary to others. But every one of those differences is also a strength, a story, a piece of culture worth celebrating. David held up a small bottle of hot sauce, the same brand he had pulled out in class 2 years ago. Humans survived a deadly planet by learning to love it. We took the things that hurt us and found ways to appreciate them. Maybe that is humanity's real contribution to the galactic community, not our ability to eat poison, but our insistence on finding the good in difficult things. He paused, then smiled. Also, we make pretty good tacos. The festival ended with music and dancing. Humans danced with Centauri, Velcarin with Drellian, species mixing and celebrating together. Carmen found David sitting on a bench, watching the celebration. You did good today, she said. We all did, David replied. This whole thing, it is bigger than just food now. It always was, Carmen said wisely. Food was just the door that opened. What came through was understanding. Professor Rilvan approached with a special guest, Counselor Mira from the Galactic Council. David, the counselor has a proposal for you, Rilvan said. Mira smiled, a gesture she had learned from humans. The council wants to establish cultural exchange programs across all member worlds. We want you and your team to help design the curriculum. Food will be part of it, but also music, art, traditions, everything that makes each species unique. David stood up, slightly shocked. That is incredible. But I am just a student. You are the student who taught the galaxy that different does not mean dangerous, Mira said. You are exactly who we need. Later that night, after the festival ended and the cleanup began, David sat with his human friends and Professor Rilvan. They shared a meal together, mild enough for Rilvan to enjoy safely. Remember when you first pulled out that hot sauce? Rilvan asked. I truly thought you were going to poison yourself. Remember when you almost hit the biohazard alarm? David countered, laughing. In my defense, I had no context for human behavior, Rilvan said. Now I understand. Humans are not dangerous. You are determined. There is a difference, Raj raised his glass, to determination. To cultural exchange, Lisa added. To finding joy in unlikely places, Yuki said. To friendship, Carmen finished. They clinked their glasses together. Human and alien, professor and students, all brought together by something as simple as spicy food. David took a sip and looked up at the stars visible through the courtyard dome. Somewhere out there, on hundreds of worlds, beings were learning that humans were not the dangerous death-worlders they feared. They were friends, teachers, and enthusiastic sharers of really spicy food. He smiled. His ancestor would never believe that hot sauce could change galactic diplomacy. But then again, they had never met Professor Rilvan. Same time next year for the festival? David asked. Everyone agreed. After all, they had a whole galaxy to feed.